Story: Independence Day of Pakistan. Section 1. The Seeds of a Dream. The story of Pakistan's independence begins in the vast lands of British India during the late 19th century. The Union Jack flew high over every city, from the crowded bazaars of Lahore to the royal palaces of Delhi. British rule had brought railways, telegraph lines, and new industries, but for the millions living under colonial control, life was far from fair. Among the most affected were the Muslims, who often felt like strangers in their own homeland. The British system favored a Western lifestyle, slowly erasing centuries-old traditions. Muslim culture, language, and education began to decline. Many Muslims lived in poverty, unable to find government jobs or proper schooling. The fear grew that if things continued this way, their identity would be lost forever. It was during this time that leaders began to rise, determined to protect their community. One such man was Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, who believed that education was the key to survival. He founded the Aligarh movement, building schools and colleges that taught modern science and literature alongside Islamic values. His work planted the first seeds of awareness among Indian Muslims. Meanwhile, political change was brewing. In 1885, the Indian National Congress was formed, claiming to represent all Indians. But as years passed, Muslims noticed that the Congress mostly reflected Hindu political interests. Many Muslim leaders feared that in a fully democratic India, their voices would be drowned out by the Hindu majority. The gap between the two communities grew wider. Differences in language, religion, and culture often turned political debates into heated disputes. Muslims celebrated their own festivals, used Urdu as their language, and followed Islamic laws, while Hindus had their own distinct traditions. These differences made some leaders believe that a single united India might not guarantee equal rights for Muslims. Then, in 1930, a poet and philosopher named Allama Muhammad Iqbal gave a speech that would change history. In his famous Allahabad address, Iqbal spoke of a dream, a separate homeland in the northwest of India where Muslims could live freely, practice their religion without fear, and shape their own future. His words lit a spark in the hearts of millions. But a dream, no matter how bright, must travel through storms before it can become reality. At the time, the idea of a separate country seemed impossible. The British Empire was still powerful, and many Indian leaders opposed the division of the land. Yet, the thought had taken root. Ordinary Muslims began to whisper about this vision in markets, in schools, and in homes. Students carried the idea in their notebooks, farmers spoke of it in the fields, and mothers told their children that one day they might live in a land of their own. A seed had been planted, a dream of freedom that was yet to face storms, sacrifices, and the test of unity. The path ahead would be long and filled with trials, but the journey had begun. Section 2. The Struggle for Identity. The seed of a separate homeland had been planted, but a dream cannot survive without a leader strong enough to guide it. That leader would be Muhammad Ali Jinnah, a man of sharp intellect, unmatched determination, and an unshakable belief in justice. Jinnah began his political career in the Indian National Congress, working for Hindu-Muslim unity. He was known as the Ambassador of Unity, a lawyer who could negotiate peace between communities. But over time, Jinnah saw that unity was slowly fading. Hindu leaders often dominated decisions, and Muslim voices were treated as secondary. He realized that without their own platform, Muslims would never truly be heard. This realization brought him to the All India Muslim League. Jinnah's arrival transformed the League from a small political group into a national movement. He traveled across the country, speaking to people in cities and villages alike, urging them to unite under one banner. His message was simple but powerful. Without unity, there is no strength. Without strength, there is no freedom. In March 1940, a turning point came. Thousands of Muslims gathered in Lahore's Minto Park. The air was electric with chants of Pakistan Zindabad. Flags waved as leaders prepared to speak. It was here that the Lahore Resolution was passed, demanding separate states for Muslims in the northwest and east of India. Though the word Pakistan was not written in the document, the vision was crystal clear. But the road ahead was far from easy. The British government hesitated to divide India, fearing instability. Hindu leaders of the Congress strongly opposed the two-nation theory, arguing that all Indians could live together in harmony. Meanwhile, communal tensions between Hindus and Muslims began to rise in towns and cities. Jinnah, however, remained unshaken. He believed that Muslims were a distinct nation, with their own religion, culture, traditions, and way of life, and therefore deserved their own homeland. He built the Muslim League into a disciplined political force, organizing rallies, speeches, and meetings that drew massive crowds. Behind the scenes, ordinary people joined the struggle in their own ways. Students painted slogans on walls. Women organized secret fundraisers for the movement. Farmers and shopkeepers donated whatever they could, a few coins, a sack of grain, or even their gold jewelry, to support the cause. For many, the dream of Pakistan was more than politics. It was a hope for dignity, safety, and identity. They imagined a land where their children could grow up without fear of losing their beliefs. By the mid-1940s, the demand for Pakistan had become unstoppable. Even the British realized that ignoring it was no longer possible. Yet, the leaders and people knew that the final steps would be the hardest. Sacrifices would be asked of them. Sacrifices that would test their patience, their courage, and their faith. The dream was now in sight, but its price was yet to be paid. The winds of change were blowing, and history was preparing to turn a page that would change the subcontinent forever. Section 3. The Price of Freedom. By 1946, the demand for Pakistan was no longer a distant hope. It was a political reality. The British knew they could not rule India forever, but the question remained, how would they leave? Negotiations began between the British government, the Indian National Congress, and the All India Muslim League. Every meeting was tense, every agreement fragile. The Congress wanted a united India. The Muslim League, under Jinnah's leadership, stood firm. Muslims must have their own homeland. The talks dragged on for months, with tempers flaring on all sides. Outside the meeting halls, unrest spread through the streets. In towns and villages, clashes erupted between Hindus and Muslims. Then, in February 1947, Britain announced that it would leave India within a year. The countdown to independence had begun. Lord Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of India, arrived with a plan. The land would be divided into two nations, India and Pakistan. The announcement sparked both joy and fear. For Muslims, Pakistan meant freedom, dignity, and self-rule. But it also meant leaving behind homes, businesses, and ancestral lands if they fell on the wrong side of the border. Millions faced an impossible choice: stay and risk their safety, or leave everything behind to start anew. When the partition lines were drawn, chaos erupted. In Punjab and Bengal, neighbors who had lived together for generations turned against each other. Trains carrying refugees were attacked. Entire villages were burned. Families were torn apart, some never to meet again. The journey to Pakistan was long and dangerous. People walked for days under the scorching sun, carrying only what they could hold. Old men leaned on sticks, mothers clutched crying children, and young boys pushed carts loaded with the few belongings they had left. Many never made it. Despite the violence and heartbreak, hope burned bright in the hearts of those who traveled toward their new homeland. They imagined streets lit with freedom, markets filled with their own people, and mosques where the call to prayer would echo without fear. In the midst of this storm, Muhammad Ali Jinnah worked tirelessly. Despite his failing health, he addressed gatherings, encouraging people to remain steadfast. His voice, though calm, carried the weight of a leader who knew that freedom always comes at a cost. On the night of August 14, 1947, as the final hours of British rule ticked away, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Radio stations prepared to broadcast the moment of independence. Flags were ready to be raised. Tears filled the eyes of those who had survived the journey. They had lost much: homes, loved ones, entire worlds, but they had gained something priceless: a country they could call their own. At midnight, history would turn its page, and a new chapter, written in sacrifice, unity, and hope, would begin. Section 4. The dawn of Pakistan. The clock struck midnight. It was the 14th of August, 1947. Across the new nation, from the mountains of the north to the deserts of Sindh, people gathered around radios, waiting for the historic announcement. The voice of the announcer trembled with emotion as he declared, "This is Radio Pakistan. We are speaking from Karachi. Pakistan has been created." The words echoed like a promise fulfilled. In homes, mosques, and open fields, people embraced, wept, and prayed. For some, it was hard to believe. After decades of struggle, the dream of Pakistan had finally become a reality. In Karachi, the first capital, the green and white flag of Pakistan was raised high. The crescent and stars shone under the morning sun, a symbol of hope and a new beginning. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, now the Governor-General, stood before the Constituent Assembly in his signature sherwani, his face calm, yet filled with determination. In his speech, he spoke of unity, faith, and discipline, the guiding principles he believed would lead the new nation to success. But independence was only the first step. The challenges that lay ahead were immense. Millions of refugees poured into Pakistan, needing shelter, food, and safety. The government worked day and night to provide for them, often with limited resources. Schools, hospitals, and offices had to be built from scratch. The economy needed to be organized. Yet, there was a sense of unshakable pride among the people. They were no longer subjects of a foreign empire. They were citizens of a free country. Men and women worked side by side, determined to shape the future of their homeland. In small villages, people celebrated with whatever they had, singing songs of freedom, cooking food to share with neighbors, and decorating streets with green flags. Children learned for the first time that they were Pakistanis, born into a country that had been dreamed of, fought for, and won through sacrifice. Jinnah reminded the nation of its responsibilities. In one of his speeches, he said, "You are free. You are free to go to your temples. You are free to go to your mosques. You may belong to any religion, caste, or creed. That has nothing to do with the business of the state." His vision was clear. Pakistan was to be a place of equality, tolerance, and justice. Though the road ahead would not be easy, the spirit of independence gave people courage. They had seen what unity could achieve, and they believed it could take them even further. As the sun set on that first day of freedom, the air was filled with the call to prayer, the hum of new beginnings, and the quiet determination of a nation ready to stand on its own. Pakistan was not just a new country on the map. It was a story written with ink made of hope, sealed with sacrifice, and passed down to every generation as a reminder that freedom, once earned, must be protected forever. Moral of the story: freedom is not given. It is earned through unity, sacrifice, and an unshakable belief in a shared dream. It must be protected with the same determination with which it was won.